shower heads, bandages, canned water, wallets, 4 product categories nobody should care about. And yet there are people walking around with these brands tattooed on their forearms, just worshiping them. And the product never explains it. Stanley and Yeti are basically the same. Liquid Death is literally just water in a can, and yet the cult shows up anyway. I've personally developed over 250 products for athletes and creators, and now I spend most of my time reverse engineering the brands that make people obsessed with boring product categories, so then I can go ahead and run those tactics on the businesses and brands that I work with. So today I'm pulling 4 of those mechanics out on screen with some examples, plus a 5-question quiz at the end that you can take yourself to see if your brand is a cult brand or just a regular boring commodity. And all of this starts with having a worldview and a shared enemy. So I built out this little diagram to show how cult brands are built, and the first lever or mechanic of that is having a sharp shared enemy. So most brands, when they hear that, they think of an enemy, they just think competitor, and they think we are just like brand X but better, and we have all these features or we have all these ingredients. And that is a rookie way of thinking it, and that is not how you build a cult brand. The way you build a cult brand is picking an enemy that is bigger than the category itself, right? And the brand that is crushing this, and a perfect example of this, is Jolie Skincare. So Jolie sells shower filter heads, right? And right away on their hero page, they are screaming out their villain. Beauty starts with clean water. They are picking an enemy of dirty water. As you scroll down, it becomes even more clear. Let's talk dirty water. And what are the problems with having dirty water? Your hair sheds, you have not clear skin, you have more breakouts, and they double down again. So 3 scrolls in and we are just shouting out who our common enemy is. There's no talk about how we have better features or we are better than this shower filter because of X, Y, and Z. It's just a common enemy that dirty water is the #1 enemy, and our brand can save you from that very scary enemy of dirty water. So it goes into talking about how we spend so much time and energy fixing the issues that dirty water causes. So we will give you a free water pour as well, instead of a discount code or a free shipping code or anything like that. Just give us your data, give us your information, and we'll give you a report on how gross and dirty your water is. And your only solution is going to be to come back and pay for our shower head and become a cult member of our society. So Jolie is executing at the highest level. We could look into their PDP page and just see how well people are probably converting on this as well, with all the tactics. That is for another video and another day. But I just wanted to make the point that they're not competing on features. They're not competing on all the boring stuff that these Amazon brands are competing on. You could buy a shower filter on Amazon right now for $35 tomorrow and get it tomorrow, but it doesn't really make you a cult member of that brand. And Jolie is doing that by raising a bigger common enemy than just the category of a shower filter head itself. Yo, super quick break to talk about today's video sponsor, Particle. This is one of my favorite softwares, and I'm literally in it every single week. If you follow me on short forms like Instagram or TikTok, I'm using this product literally weekly and breaking down brands and their numbers and what they're using on how to win and what is actually selling. So this is like the best competitor spying tool. On the left here, you can see they have a bunch of different analysis. My favorite is this white space one right here. So you can actually see the white space of a category, and then you can dig into brands. So last week I talked about this bath salt brand that is doing $10 million monthly. So this is the last 4 weeks over here. And like I said, they are selling bath salts as a supplement. So you can see their best selling products, the price distribution, and then you can even see their recent marketing assets, their home pages. It really is just the all encompassing tool. And then they also have the Claude and ChatGPT connector. So literally from my phone, I can go into Claude. I see a brand on Instagram or I see whatever, and I can say, hey, pull the numbers from Craig Hill, or Cadence is another one. That is one of my favorite brands that I love keeping an eye on to see what they are doing in sales. Obviously doing pretty well, and their marketing assets. So they just launched with Walmart. So they have a new homepage, and you can see their top selling products, which is their new card powder that they just launched. So thank you again, Particle, for sponsoring this video. Go check them out. There's a link in my bio for a link to sign up to Particle, and you can try 14 days free. Love y'all. Keep creating. back to the video. So let's get back into the diagram and get on with number 2, which is the category hijack. So this is more so on the product layer side of things. And how you do this is you yank your boring category into a richer one in the buyer's head. So what do I mean by this? A perfect example of this is a brand that sells one of arguably the most boring product of all time, bandages. But as you will see, these are not regular bandages. These are bandages that have tin packaging that is stackable. Bandages themselves are loud. They're clearly embracing, boo-boos and scrapes rather than having the nude or skin tone bandages. They're actually taking on the worldview or finding an enemy of not hiding scrapes and doubling down on playing on because welly stays on, which is just a subtle nod to the features of their bandages actually work and stay on. So you're just seeing all this kind of like free game in this copy, but Welly did the category hijack with their packaging and their tins, right? Because now this is something that can stay on the counter. This isn't something that's going to get shoved away in a drawer or pushed away. This is something that is extremely giftable. There's not people that are just gifting people bandages or band-aids, but now with these tins or these printable tins and cool designs, these are very giftable. So instead of staying on a cheap price, Welly went ahead and category hijacked and is now in a higher price category in the buyer's head. Sorry, I've got so many words going on, but hopefully that makes sense as far as the second lever and mechanic of building a cult brand. And then after the category hijack, the third part of building a cult brand is the identity capture. So this is the post-purchase layer. So this is actually after somebody has purchased your product and you bring them in and you get them to drink the Kool-Aid. So this is where you convert a buyer into a member of your subculture. And a brand that is doing this at the highest level is Liquid Death. And I know Liquid Death is probably the most talked about D2C brand, but rightfully so. They literally turned water into a $300 million Goliath at retail. And there's multiple reasons why they're doing that, right? They have a shared worldview. Again, murder your thirst. They are taking after being thirsty. They're not going after other water brands or saying we have a better spring water from a better tap or whatever other water brands say. They're going after thirst. And then they label their customers as death heads. They don't just give them as just regular customers or our customers are great. They treat them as they are rock and roll fans and literal cult members. So they have the 6 layers of this are the vocabulary. Then they have the membership. So that is the country club right here, which is actually closed. I thought this was a free thing that people could join, but clearly they are adding some scarcity in here, which again is going to make their cult people even crazier if you have to wait to get on the list. So that is just a triple down on what I'm talking about here. The 4th layer is their merch. I believe I saw somewhere that they do $3 million annually in merch, which is probably more than your favorite clothing brand right now. And again, let me remind you, this is a canned water brand. And they are pulling all these levers, turning their customers into literal cult members. And then another lever is their content teams. I believe they have a full in-house production teams that is doing these massive ad spots. They have released full music albums based on bad reviews that people have left. They turn negative reviews into literal music albums. These guys are just 5-layer deeps in customer retention and literally building cult members off of water. And now we get to the 4th layer, which is the retention loop. So this is where all of your work right here compounds, the math works, and this is where you turn your cult members into recruiters. That makes your CAC fall while rivals' CAC climbs. If you are new to the term CAC, that is your customer acquisition cost. So if you do these first 3 layers correctly and turn your cult members into recruiters, then your cost of going to acquire new customers will go down and it will compound as you have people doing the work for you. So a brand I want to talk about that is crushing this and doing this great is none other than the D2C legendary brand Ridge. So the CEO, Sean Frank, is actually very open about all the things that they do and their numbers on their podcast, The Operators. So go check that out. but let's dig into what they're doing correctly and how they are executing the retention loop at the highest level. So as we look at the navigation here, we have the wallets, the rings, the travel kits, the tech bundles. I believe if we scroll down, we have some even more categories like power banks and key cases and chains and so on and so forth. And how Ridge is doing this at a high level is they're turning their original wallet customer into a cult member by offering it very similar product categories that persona would be interested into. And then also, if it is just a Ridge wallet, because not many times people are going to be coming back and needing multiple wallets every year or every month. Honestly, you probably buy a wallet and you're good for a while. But what Ridge does is they release so many different SKUs. They will do cool prints, they will do cool licensing deals, and they will just keep refreshing these cool wallets. And since it is such a good product and since they have such a good pulse on what their persona and customer wants, people are actually coming back and building that retention loop of refreshing their Ridge, I believe is a term that they mentioned quite a while. And then I also wanted to make a note on the licensing side of things that Ridge increases their TAM by maybe pulling in somebody that would not have got their ad as for like a techie wallet or anything like that. But if they're an NFL fan and they get an ad for this and they buy this, now they become in an ecosystem of Ridge that they are going to be in that retention loop nonstop, because now to match their Cardinals wallet, they need the Cardinals key case and so on and so forth. So Ridge is one of the elite brands at direct consumer and growth and all things how to market D2C brand. So go check them out. But to review, we have the 4 mechanics of how a cult brand is built. You have the sharp shared enemy, you have the category hijack, the identity capture, and then the retention loop on the economics layer. And so here's how you can actually use all of this. I actually built a 5-question diagnostic that you can run on your own brand, and it will score you on these 4 layers that we talked about just now. The first question is about the enemy test, is can you name your enemy in 1 sentence? The second question is the hijack test. And it basically says if your stranger picked up your product cold, what category would they put it in? The third is the identity test. And it's basically would a customer be able to self-identify themselves as like your brand customer and a true fan of you? Or in other words, is your customer comfortable admitting that they are drinking your Kool-Aid? And then the fourth question is about the loop test, is if you turned off paid acquisition tomorrow, what percentage of revenue is still going to show up? And then the last question to round it all out is the worldview test. And that's basically a question, if you asked your customer why they bought, will they talk about a feature, the price, or will they talk about the shared worldview? And if you run through this quiz and score pretty low, that might be a sign that you are stuck in the commodity lane. And if you scored pretty high, that is a really good sign that you are probably running a cult engine already. And the brands you just watched, Jolie, Welly, Liquid Death, Ridge, all 4 of those are very boring product categories. None of them invented anything. None of them have a magic feature. What they have is a worldview that compounds through these 4 layers. And if you're building something inside of one of these categories and need some help engineering a system like this, that is exactly what we do over at Orange Tree Studios. So please shoot us a message. And as always, like, subscribe, and I will continue to break down boring product categories and teach you how to print cash in. Love y'all. Keep creating.